It's wonderful that we have such a community of people that can build such tools as AI and Google to come together and help one another out. And you know, the church is supposed to be like that too. A place where we can help one another grow, learn new things, and help each other when things go wrong. One of the ways that we learn here in church is by listening to God through the Bible. So today we're going to hear our first passage from 1 Samuel chapter 16.
The Lord said to Samuel, "How long will you mourn for Saul, since I have rejected him as king over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and be on your way. I am sending you to Jesse of Bethlehem. I have chosen one of his sons to be king." But Samuel said, "How can I go? If Saul hears about it, he will kill me." The Lord said, "Take a heifer with you and say, 'I have come to sacrifice to the Lord.' Invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what to do. You are to anoint for me the one I indicate." Samuel did what the Lord said. When he arrived at Bethlehem, the elders of the town trembled when they met him. They asked, "Do you come in peace?" Samuel replied, "Yes, in peace. I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourselves and come to the sacrifice with me." Then he consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. When they arrived, Samuel saw Eliab and thought, "Surely the Lord's anointed stands here before the Lord." But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." Then Jesse called Abinadab and had him pass in front of Samuel. But Samuel said, "The Lord has not chosen this one either." Jesse then had Shammah pass by, but Samuel said, "Nor has the Lord chosen this one." Jesse had 7 of his sons pass before Samuel, but Samuel said to him, "The Lord has not chosen these." So he asked Jesse, "Are these all the sons that you have?" "Well, there's still the youngest," Jesse answered. "He's tending the sheep." Samuel said, "Send for him. We will not sit down until he arrives." So he sent for him and had him brought in. He was glowing with health and had a fine appearance and handsome features. And the Lord said, "Arise and anoint him. This is the one." So Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the presence of his brothers. And from that day on, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David. Samuel then went to Ramah.
Was a short story of how God's people wanted a king. And God decided that through his prophet Samuel, he was going to give them one. But if you want to now, you can join in with me. God didn't choose a big king, or a strong king, or a pretty king. God looked around and saw different things. God almost seemingly went over to the children's area and said, "Anna-Ray, can I borrow you?" "Here is your king." Because God didn't care what people looked like on the outside. He didn't care about things that people cared about. Do you think you'd have a king that was that little? Would you do everything that that little boy said? Carissa's nodding her head. Yeah, I would. No. I like Anna Ray, and he's got a lot to teach me. Got a lot to teach all of us, but I'm not sure that I would do everything that he said. Largely because I think I'd drive a lot of cars, very expensive cars, very fast. So God instead told Samuel that he doesn't look at the things that people look at. Instead, he looks at the heart. What do you think he meant by that? What do you think he meant by that?
If they're kind or not.
So if they're kind or not, yeah? Anything else? What does God mean, Ron? I'm going to repeat the question. What does God mean when he says he looks at the heart?
Whether you're truthful or not.
Truthful or not, yeah. Okay, Pat?
He looks how the person thinks and feels inside.
So he looks at what they think and what they feel inside, yeah. He's looking at somebody's real character, isn't he? He's looking at who they really are, deep down. And our next story from the Bible is going to show us the exact same thing. That Jesus doesn't look at things the same way as his disciples or religious leaders, but rather that he sees things completely differently. The next reading is quite long, so I've broken it up into bits. Would you like to hear a bit about when Jesus has a disagreement with his disciples? Yeah? Okay, well, we're going to hear John chapter 9, verses 1 to 12 now then. Oh, carry on, Graham. And while you're listening, listen out for the gross bit. There's a bit in this story that is particularly... Ugh. So, ears open.
As Jesus went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" "Neither this man nor his parents sinned," said Jesus, "but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I'm in the world, I am the light of the world." After saying this, he spat on the ground and made some mud with the saliva and put it on the man's eyes. "Go," he told him, "wash in the pool of Siloam." That word means sent. So the man went and washed and came home seeing. His neighbours and those who had formerly seen him begging asked, "Isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg?" Some claimed that he was. Others said, "No, he only looks like him." But he himself insisted, "I am the man." "How then were your eyes open?" they asked. He replied, "The man they called Jesus made some mud and put it on my eyes. He told me to go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed, and then I could see." "Where is this man?" they asked him. "I don't know," he said.
Did anyone hear the gross bit then? What was the minging bit?
He spat on the floor.
He spat on the floor, and did anyone hear what he did next?
He rubbed the mud on the man's face.
He spat on the floor and made some mud and rubbed it in the man's face. Ugh. Yeah, not nice, is it? But it helped the man. It was that blind man that Jesus and his disciples saw differently. Did you hear the questions that were asked right at the beginning? When Jesus' disciples said, "Who sinned? Was it this man or his parents?" They wanted to know whose fault it was that he was blind. Can't say we can blame them very much. As humans, we all like to know why things are the way things are, don't they? Those of you that are parents or have experienced children in almost any way, I'm sure will attest to the fact that they love the question, why? Everyone agreeing so far? Why? 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 Well, why is this man blind? The disciples asked Jesus. Is it because he did something wrong, or is it because his parents did something wrong? Do you think anyone did anything wrong? No, Jesus didn't. Jesus, this is just the way things are. However, Jesus notices an opportunity. He doesn't so much as look back as look to what can be achieved in the moment. What can I do for good here? What can I do for God in this situation that will shine my light? Jesus calls himself the light of the world. In this situation where things aren't seemingly good, because the blind man was sat begging, asking for help. Lots of people were walking past, not helping him. He was probably a lot skinnier than I am, or can ever pretend to be. But Jesus looked and he thought, I'm going to help. I'm going to do something. Jesus didn't choose to ask who was in the wrong, but used the opportunity to demonstrate the loving, kind, and generous nature of God by healing a man in need. Jesus isn't disgusted by the begging blind man. He's not frightened or ashamed. He isn't stuck. He simply dares to do something about it. And what does he use? Dust and a bit of spit. Ugh. Anyone else, maybe who comes to church a bit more regularly, think of any other examples of dust in the Bible? Oh, they're all just as stuck. Anyone who doesn't come to church so regularly, think of any other examples of dust in the Bible? Okay, wonderful. Let me tell you then. Oh, Mabel stuck around up at the last minute.
Well, I didn't want to hog the scene. Wasn't Adam made from... It's not working.
Adam, yeah.
And remember, man, that thou art dust, and unto dust thou shalt return.
Indeed. Yes, that is Lent and Ash Wednesday. Yes, we are dust, and to dust we shall return. Absolutely. But what happens with dust in Genesis chapter 2, the second of our creation stories, is man is made from dust by God. It is then, I don't think, not an accident that Jesus chooses to use some dust here. This too is a symbolic act that God is creating something anew, something fresh. God is going to do something new through Jesus. And of course, he says those words, I am the light of the world. Must do things while the light is here. Whilst we have the opportunity to act, whilst Jesus is with us, we must empower, seek God's justice, demonstrate God's love. But how many people here like it when things change? Now that's a very honest church. A very honest church, that. No hands. Everyone sit on them. We don't like change. And some of them are sat there going, oh, what is he going to suggest next? Change is hard. And do you know what? It was just the same back then. The religious people didn't like this change that Jesus was talking about. They didn't dare. They thought, what's Jesus doing? Who is this man? What's he up to? We don't like it. He's challenging us. It would be a bit like a man walking in here now and saying that he knew more about God than me. Oh, wouldn't be difficult, to be fair. But that was what it would be like. And the religious leaders, they got quite upset. So they decided that they would interview the blind man that was healed. And our next bit of the story is him being interviewed by some people called the Pharisees. They're religious leaders of the day. So we're going to hear the next chunk of our story now.
This part of the story is called "The Pharisees Investigate the Healing." They brought to the Pharisees the man who had been blind. Now, the day on which Jesus had made the mud and opened the man's eyes was a Sabbath. Therefore, the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight. "He put mud on my eyes," the man replied, "and I washed, and now I see." Some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath." But the others asked, "How can a sinner perform such signs?" So they were divided. Then they turned again to the blind man. "What have you to say about him? It was your eyes he opened." The man replied, "He is a prophet." They still did not believe that he had been blind and had received his sight again, until they sent for the man's parents. "Is this your son?" they asked. "Is this the one you say was born blind? How is it that he can now see?" "We know he is our son," the parents answered, "and we know he was born blind. But how he can see now, or who opened his eyes, we don't know. Ask him. He is of age. He will speak for himself." His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jewish leaders, who already had decided that anyone who acknowledged that Jesus was the Messiah would be put out of the synagogue. That was why his parents said, "He is of age. Ask him." A second time, they summoned the man who had been blind. "Give glory to God by telling the truth," they said. "We know this man is a sinner." He replied, "Whether he is a sinner or not, I don't know. One thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see." Then they asked him, "What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" He answered, "I have told you already. You did not listen. Why do you want to hear it all again? Do you want to become his disciples too?" Then they hurled insults at him and said, "You are this fellow's disciple. We are disciples of Moses. We know that God spoke to Moses, but as for this fellow, we don't even know where he comes from." The man answered, "Now that is remarkable. You don't know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners. He listens to the godly person who does his will. Nobody has ever heard of opening the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing." To this they replied, "You were steeped in sin at birth. How dare you lecture us?" And they threw him out.
So the religious leaders, they grabbed hold of the man who had been healed, who could now see, and they dragged him in to a dark room probably, and they asked him lots of questions. And they were trying to figure it out. What's Jesus doing? We don't even know where he's come from, they said. We don't know anything about him. How has he done this? Is he trying to lead all of our people astray? And that's what they thought. He was trying to lead them away from God. And the man at the end, he says, "Oh no, what we know is that God doesn't listen to sinners. He healed me because he must be from God." But do you think the religious leaders wanted to listen? No, they didn't. Somebody's stolen me notes, Graham.
Sorry.
Oh, I don't know. Who knows? Right, we're off script. That means it's very dangerous. We're off script. It means that we have to work out who is from God for ourselves. It means that we have to make up our own mind about Jesus. This wasn't in my script, but never mind. There was a saying in a course that I did a while ago. It might have been the Alpha course, it might have been another one, where it said exactly the same. You have to make up your own mind about Jesus. Jesus claimed to be God, and he means he could either have been three things. He could either have been mad and thought he was God even though he wasn't, or he could be bad and know he wasn't God and be lying, or he could be telling the truth and he could be God. Those are sort of the three options, roughly, that we have when we're thinking about making up our minds about who Jesus was and what he was doing. And what do you think the Pharisees thought he was? I think the Pharisees thought he was either mad or bad. He was either crazy or he was lying. But the blind man said no. He did something really good, really helpful. I think he must be God, or at least from God, doing God's work. Did anyone notice why they got cross? What they got the most upset about? Go on, shout out. Because he did it on the Sabbath. They weren't cross that he healed the man. They were cross that he made his healing concoction of spit and dirt on a Sabbath day, a day that was supposed to be God's day. And the law in their religious texts, our Old Testament says you're not supposed to do any work on the Sabbath. How dare you? And Jesus has some things to say about that. What do you think Jesus might say? I think Jesus might say we should always help people. That we should always do the right thing, because that should be who we are. We're not a group of people who have very strict rules and regulations. We don't get to know God that way. We get to know God through our relationship, through knowing what God would want to do. And if we look at all of our hearts things here, when God sees a man who is blind and hungry and in need, what do you think God immediately wants to do? He immediately wants to help. God wants the world to be right. He wants the whole of creation to be put right. We think about what's going on in the world at the moment. How do you think God would feel then? Sad. Maybe. There seems to be lots of war, lots of fighting, lots of things happening. The Pharisees were people who liked to make a big show and dance of how important they were, how good at sticking to the rules and regulations they were. So they wouldn't even go near people who might be dirty, who might make them unclean, physically or spiritually. They'd be very careful about where they went, who they spoke to, what they ate. Now, I wonder, as you think about the world today, adults probably, whether you can think of anyone else who claims to understand Scripture and be a Christian and makes a big show and dance about doing that, but does the complete opposite. Does the complete opposite of what Jesus teaches, of what Jesus asks us to do. I didn't give James the picture that I was going to at one point because I thought it was a bit naughty. But there was a picture on one of my social media feeds recently of a big prayer meeting in a big house that happened to be white. And I felt sick. I don't think that's what Jesus commands us to do. I don't think we truly understand what Jesus' lessons in this passage are really about. really about God's heart, wanting to care for each and every one of us. It's not about following a legalistic rule. It's about caring, longing to see people made better, saved, looked after, cared for. Those things that come from within. It's not about the outside. It's not about how we look, the clothes that we wear, and the Pharisees would have had very special clothes to wear. Let me ask you, brownies, guides, scouts, if I was to put on one of your hoodies, or go home and get my explorer's shirt and put scout leader's shirt and put that on, does that automatically make me a good person? No. Uniform doesn't. It shows that we belong, but it doesn't mean that we are automatically a good person. Scouts and guides and brownies and rainbows and all the derivatives of the same all encourage us to look at those things deeper inside us, don't they? I didn't look this up or come prepared, but thankfully you've got some leaders sat with you. What does the brownie promise say? Hang on.
We should put people before ourselves.
You should put people before yourselves. That sounds like something that God would want us to do, doesn't it? Does it say anything else? Does the guide one say anything different? To respect the king and your community. Yeah, absolutely. To respect those around you. Yes. To care for people. When I was a scout, we always had to do a good turn every day. Have to do something good, be kind and generous. We can all think of lots of words, and we did earlier, of what God would want us to be. And that's what God looks at. And I think, just like God, that's what most people who want to teach us things also want for us. They don't necessarily want to teach us lots of things that make us look good. They want to teach us how to be good from the inside out. To be generous and kind and patient and loving and forgiving. But the Pharisees in their teaching, and they would have all had disciples too, taught people to follow very hard and fast rules, to make themselves look good before being good, before seeking God's justice. Our final bit of our reading today is what happens when Jesus catches up with the Pharisees, or they catch up with him. So Graham's going to come and read that to us now. Are you not? Well, maybe I have. I don't know. I can read it for the sake of expediency. John chapter 9, verses 35 to 41. Jesus heard that they had thrown him out, and when he found him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" "Who is he, sir?" the man asked. "Tell me so that I may believe in him." Jesus said, "You have now seen him. In fact, he is the one speaking with you." And then the man said, "Lord, I believe." And he worshipped him. Jesus said, "For judgment I have come into this world, so that the blind will see, and those who will see will become blind." Some Pharisees who were with him heard him say this and asked, "What? Are we blind too?" Jesus said, "If you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin. But now that you claim you can see, your guilt remains." When we claim that we can spiritually see, when we understand God and do not help others, do not follow that most basic of his commands, to love ourselves and to love one another and to love him, we are guilty of sin. But when we admit that we are in need of Jesus' help, to clear our blindness, to help us see how God loves the world, then we are forgiven. And Jesus comes quickly to aid us, just as he did with the man made blind. we're going to stand and sing in just a moment.